Welcome, everybody, to the next episode of our podcast with the Legacy Wealth Capital Group. I got my partner, Sean, here. Sean, how's it going today?
Pretty good, pretty good. Not
I
too bad
told
at all.
Sean earlier, guys, that his microphone sounds real podcasty. And he said he did nothing to it, but today it's coming through loud and clear. So, hey, I guess that internet is popping. Sean,
That's it.
I got a topic that's on my mind and my heart just because of something that I went through. Because what I want to do, and this is for you all that's listening, I always want to make sure that we give you the most current information, but also what's happening in the real world. And maybe you see it, maybe I'm doing something wrong. Chime in on the comments as you listen through this or to this episode and let me know your thoughts. But my question is, what happened to networking and partnerships? And so I'll give you what I've seen just recently from doing a networking campaign. And Sean, we can kind of just dive into what you think is going on, maybe some tactics, some tricks, some things to try. But I did, and I will say it was a cold campaign to search for partners, to network, to build relationships, because they say that your network is your net worth. And so all these things we hear from other podcasters, from YouTube, from the influencers is if you don't have a strong network or if you're the smartest person in the room, then you got to get in another room. So I made an attempt to get in another room, if you will. So I did a cold LinkedIn outreach to pretty much everybody that I connected with on LinkedIn, and using Sales Navigator, I did some searches and I did some cold outreach to some new people that weren't connected to me at all. The ask, if you want to say, or if you will, was just to set a call. Let's talk about how we can add value to what you do in your business with your clients and how you may be able to add value to us or refer clients to us or help us in a certain way. And what I got largely back was no thanks, or I don't think my clients need that, or there was confusion or a thought that I was trying to sell them on something. And
Mm.
so then I started thinking, like, okay, my messaging was pretty clear. We're Legacy Wealth Capital Group. We help businesses grow and scale, prepare to exit, acquire other businesses, IPO, raise capital. In my mind, I'm thinking, what business doesn't want that or doesn't need that? And so for all the people that said my clients don't need that help, and I'm looking at their profile and they provide marketing services, they may be an attorney, they may have been a bookkeeper or CFO. I'm like, you don't do what we do, or you do strategy, but you don't implement. We build infrastructure. So how is it your client doesn't need it unless they're $100 million client? Now, if they're making 100 million, they probably don't need it. But as I walk through that, I'm trying to think about, and then I got one where they said, "Oh, I want real personal relationships before I work with someone." And I'm thinking, well, how do you build personal relationships when you don't start networking with people in the beginning? And so I'll stop there because I said a lot. But what's your initial reaction to that?
You know, I just believe that, like for example, you said you were going through bookkeepers and attorneys and things of that nature. You know, I think a lot of it is well, I believe a lot of it is just what that client said, the personal relationship. Um, you know, most businesses need some sort of financial help in order to get where they need to go, whether that means expansion or getting product or distribution or whatever. They need some sort of financial help. Um, but a lot of businesses don't understand that on how to get this help. They're either going through loans or personal, using their own finances. but they don't understand the help. But when people approach lawyers and things of that nature, and a lawyer they don't know you, so to speak, then a lot of times what happens is they're like, no, we don't need that because they're not willing to stick their neck out
Mm-hmm.
on the line in order to um, basically approach their clients for somebody they don't know. Does that make sense?
That makes
Because
perfect sense.
if this client messes up, excuse me, if this person messes up that relationship, then it goes back on that attorney or that bookkeeper, etc. So that's just what I believe.
So then the question becomes, how do you build a new network if everybody, not everybody, I don't want to use the term everybody, if people are closely guarding their relationships? Now, for me,
Yeah,
what I used to do, especially in the real estate world, was if a person asked me, do you know a roofer? You know a plumber? You know a contractor? You know an appliance guy? And I would always say, yes, here's the person that I used. I can't guarantee if they're going to show up for you the way they showed up for me or not. That's between you two. They always did great work for me, but I don't know if situations change. I always caveated that because I had it happen to me. I went to a guy who had great people working for him and they always did great work, but when they came and did work for me, it didn't turn out so well. There were issues. And I went back to the guy, I'm like, you said this person, he was like, well, I can't control what they do when they do or what point of life they're in. All I know is that he did great work for me. And if it didn't work out for you, it just didn't work out. And that didn't sour my relationship with him. It was just people being people. I understand. I get it. And I'm going to get into this a little bit later. But my thing is now then, I understand what you said and I agree. How do you start to build a relationship with a person who says no immediately?
yeah. I believe my personal belief, right? And like I said, the world have evolved so much, the technology and things of that nature. But I firmly believe in going out there and shaking hands with people and establishing relationships like that. I like to look at a man in his eyes to see what type of person he is, right? To see if he's,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because most people they, and it's funny, right? Most people can't lie and talk to you at the same time without some sort of sign, right? But I like to look at people in their eyes and shake hands and things of that nature. And you can always get somebody's character that way. And that's how I've always built type, long term relationships. Um, Now, obviously, we have social media now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in order to establish relationships now, a lot of times these people would have to see you online. Like for example, we do these podcasts, right? So now people kind of look at us and say, okay, these guys are legit or these guys are they're good because I see them online a lot and I see them talking about this type of stuff. And they have a website and things of that nature. But a lot of times, if these people haven't even been exposed to your social media, then it's a lot. It's difficult to bring them to get them to trust you. You know what I mean? And that's the first thing I'll say. I'll tell somebody, well, you see me, I'm online. Here's my website. Here's this. Here's that. This is what I've done. And then that way they can kind of research and kind of come to their own conclusion. And usually that conclusion is okay. This guy is legit.
Mm-hmm.
But that's my experience.
Yeah, that's good. It goes back to what you're saying now, kind of relates to the book Oversubscribed, when they're talking about can someone go online and consume 7 hours of content that you've put out there?
Yeah.
Can they see you in four different places: YouTube, Facebook, IG, TikTok, LinkedIn? Can they get to know you, like you, and trust you from content that you put out there? So you're spot
Mhm.
on with saying that because even when I'm telling people about organic social media, paid ads, email marketing, these are all different channels for someone to get to know you. Now,
Mhm.
My next question then becomes, and I'm learning and seeing this a lot too, and it's always been this way, the pay to play. People want you to join their program, they want you to join their membership, even the chambers, they want you to join their chamber. It seems like another way that people feel like networking with you is if you join the same group they're in and become a
Mhm.
member. And that is prevalent. It's like, I don't necessarily need you to join a group with me for me to give you information or to help you.
Yeah,
If
yeah,
you ask me and I have a resource, I'm going to give you that resource. I'm not going to say, well, you know what? I got this group. We all trade referrals in my group. If you come in,
yeah,
you could be a part of it. And I've joined many of those groups, and I'm a member
yeah,
of some of
yeah.
those groups today. Some are great, some are just people sitting in a room, still not adding value to one another. So, what would you say, or what are your opinions on the pay to play model?
It kind of restricts you, so to speak. I mean, you like I'm a part of one of these groups as well, and I have never done business with that group. I've always done business with people outside because it's lot of times these groups don't have all of the answers as well. You know, um, you know, and they don't have the same kind of philosophy as like if you give me a call, I'm going to give you like just like you, I'm going to give you, somebody in my network, right? I don't. I mean, I think that just relying on the group. If I have to go back to the group and and get their source, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess they serve a purpose,
Hmm.
but I really don't see the benefit of keeping everything in one group. It just doesn't fit me.
Yeah. And as you guys are listening, definitely drop in your thoughts, your experiences, your tips, because this is to help everybody listening figuring out or to figure out, how do you network successfully? How do you create partnerships outside of your circle that you already have? Because again,
Yeah,
you've been told, if you're the smartest person in the room, get in another room. If your network cannot expand your net worth, then you need to get in a new network. How do you
yeah,
make that move? How have you guys that's listening made those moves? What have you done? What has worked for you? I think that adding tremendous value wherever you are
yeah,
helps. Being freely giving helps, because then you're seen as a person that gives, and that gives sometimes and is supposed to reciprocate. And so a lot of people then will say, well, don't join a group to get something. Well, everybody, that if you're saying that, you're not being realistic, because you're not
mhm,
putting money and investing into a group and not looking for an ROI. You can be
yeah,
helpful for free to the masses. So when you're doing these pay for play groups, make sure you're getting the ROI out of that group. Understand how many
yeah,
members are in that group, how many deals are actually circulating in that group. Where's the proof and the evidence from it? Because you want to grow your network. And what I see the most successful companies doing, especially those coming out of Silicon Valley and the tech world, they all know each other. Every time you see these companies raising billions of dollars, they're backed from the same people they either work with, they went through a program with,
yeah,
that they know, that they went to college with. And so those networks are established because
hmm,
they went through something together.
yeah,
Now, as like you said, in the social media world, you may not go through as much together in person. They're the in person, the college, the life that will put you in the same room isn't the same. And we have a lot of cold outreach. That then lends the question, is there a change or a shift in networking and partnerships that we need to make in order to survive in the future? Because I
yeah,
don't know how you go global or even national if you only want to work with a certain group of people that you really know and trust.
yeah, yeah. I think everything has to evolve, right? And I think it has to be a sprinkle of a little bit of everything. You have to have a social media presence. You have to go out there and shake hands. You have to, you have to, um, just get out there. Um, I have, over 30 years of networking experience, right? And I've done everything from golfing events
Mm-hmm.
to, podcasts and social media. You just have to get out there, and you just have to get your name out there. You have to get out there, and you have to, and what's most important too, you have to give a good message. Because if you can give a good message and make some sense of everything that's happening, people will catch on and say, "Yeah, I know this guy. I've heard of this guy. He sounds like a pretty good, cool guy." And people will get in contact with you if you're talking that talk, if you're talking the right talk, and you're talking talk, you're telling people things that's going to help their business out. But you just have to, you can't be a hidden a hidden marketer. You can't be out. You have to be out there. And that was one of my things that I didn't really want to do. I didn't really want to be out there and talking and podcasts and stuff like that. But I understand in order to be, a billion-dollar company, you have to have some type of presence out there. And it just reminds me of, I was just thinking of the other day. I remember when I was a broker and GM first came out with all OnStar, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they had to do uh, calls to the broker dealers across the United States, and we was on one of those calls. So I'm up here listening to, I believe it was the CEO of GM, and or the president, and he was on this call telling everybody about how you'll be able to call in if you got a flat tire and all of this other stuff. I mean, I remember this call. Now, how often the General Motors president get out here and talk to broker dealers? But he did it that way because, I mean, he did it that time because he wanted all the broker dealers to first of all, to pitch his company and to understand the technology that's coming out. I went to a trade show called the Channel Partners, and Microsoft, I believe it was a Channel Partners, but it was the largest technology, or the CES conference. CES, that's what it was, in Las Vegas. And either the CEO or the VP of Microsoft was on stage talking about the technology and the future that was going to happen. And they was talking about, they got this brand new video game coming out called Xbox, and you'll be able to play people all over the world. But
Mm-hmm.
they got to go on stage and talk to hundreds of thousands of people about their product. These people are from all over the United States, all over the world, and they're on stage pitching their product to us. So yes, you have to get out there. If you want your company to grow, if you want your company to be in that 100 million billion dollar arena, you have to get out there and you have to talk about it. And if you can get in on one of these stages to where you're pitching people on an international scale, then hey, so be it. But you got to get used to it.
I'm glad you took it that way because now I want to talk a little bit about the networking and partnerships in order to raise capital. In the beginning, I was talking more towards creating relationships so these professional service providers, if they find that their clients need resources, building infrastructure, raising capital, helping them acquire other businesses, then we would be their referral partner. And likewise, when our clients need attorneys and CPAs and bookkeepers and strategists and other things that we don't provide, we're their referral partner. We have this circle, and the more partners you have, the better. Because another thing about, and this is, and before we shift, this is something that I find is limited thinking. They may not agree with me or not. If you only want to work with a select few of people because you've built a relationship, that doesn't necessarily mean if you refer me to them that I'm gonna like them.
Mhm.
You need four, five, six attorneys because you don't know how the different person may gel with that person. Because you like them doesn't mean that the next person likes them, even if you trust them, even if you vouch for them. There are some people that has been referred to me that I just can't work with. And so keeping that circle so tight because you built a relationship may be at a disservice to your client. Now,
Mhm.
disagree with me? Totally fine. Love to hear your opinion. Now, shifting to capital raising, the networking and the partnerships is also essential because I was researching Start Engine, WeFunder, Capital Engine, some of these other SEC registered platforms that you can do crowdfunding raises on. Most of them recommend before you launch to the public, you raise at least 50
Yeah.
to $100,000 from your network,
Hmm.
your friends and family, the people that you know, and then I think WeFunder, they don't put you on their site or push you. They may put you on the site. I don't think they actually push you until you have 50,000 raised. Could be wrong, but I thought I read that. The question then becomes now, are you
And deal
networking?
makers, what, 300,000, something like that?
Dealmaker was pretty expensive as well.
Deal makers like 300,000, something like that.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. The question then becomes, are you networking with people in the right groups, in the right circles to be able to raise that kind of capital from friends and family, angel investors, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
Because in order to get momentum and then actually crowd fundraise, you want early supporters. And so, Sean, for the internet world, let's just say I come from a background. I don't really have anybody in my network that's got 500, 1,000, 2,000 to give to my idea. Now, what do I do?
Yeah. That's a good question. Again, it falls back on networking, right? You got to get out there. You can't be a secret marketer. You can't hide your stuff. You got to be out there and you got to talk to different people. If you're doing crowdfunding, then put together an internet campaign. Put together an internet campaign to where you're promoting your product. You know, um, go out there and shake hands. Go to these different networking events and get on these different conference calls. I mean, my partner, Cal and I, we went on a radio station and was talking about the company. And we got people calling in and asking us questions and things of that nature. These are small things that you can do in order to get people interested in your product. And what I find the hardest thing to do for some people, and what a lot of people don't do, is they don't ask for the money. They'll talk about they need capital. They'll talk about all of this stuff regarding the capital, but they do not ask somebody, "I need $5,000." You know, that's one of the most. That's probably one of the least asked questions out of the in the capital raising arena, asking for the money. Most people do not ask for 20,000, 50,000, whatever, and most people don't probably know how to close a deal. But you have to be around people, and then think about it, dude. Think about it, Tyrus, is the crowdfunding. You can set your minimum. So your minimum,
Mm-hmm.
let's say your minimum is $3.99, right? A lot of people can afford $3.99, and yeah, it's not the most, but at least you're getting something in. And what I tell my people is get something in, because you're able to go back to these guys because they believe in you, right? Because they invested in you the first time,
Yep.
and you're able to get more money. So, um, but yeah, you just got to get out there and you got to talk to people. You got to rub elbows with people, and then you got to ask for the money.
Yeah, I think networking should always have a purpose,
Yeah,
and people should be very upfront about that purpose. And I think there's this, there are two camps or two thoughts almost with networking. You have the people who believe to network just to know a lot of people, and then you have people that network with intention. And
Yeah.
what I notice is the most successful people always network with intention.
Hmm.
They
Yep.
go in, they know they have an ask, they know exactly what that ask is, and like you said, they're not afraid to make that ask because if you have a compelling story, a great idea, you can articulate it, you'll be another Elon Musk who doesn't have to raise money from anybody, but yet he still raises
He
billions of
still
dollars
raises
from
money.
people.
Yeah. And I thought of I'll tell you what, I thought of an idea on how to get people to approach, for example, somebody like me. You know, um, I was thinking of wearing a shirt. When you go to networking events, obviously,
Yep.
right? I was thinking of wearing a shirt and says, "I find investors." Because what is the average person going to do? Well, how do you find investors, right? So now I'll answer them, and then I'm able to talk to them and create an opportunity for the company, right? Because sometimes you have to listen. I can't speak to everybody. Now I can try, but I can't speak to everybody. But at least somebody can find me or notice me or whatever. And I got that from. I remember I went to this magic show thing back in the early '90s. And Magic Show is the largest clothing company in the United States, right? By the way, and there were people walking around. They didn't have a booth, but they were walking around with the clothes on
Mm-hmm.
that they represented, and people were going up to them, distributors and uh, people that pay for clothing lines and things of that nature. They was walking up to these people, was like, "Man, that's some nice clothes. Where did you get them? Where did you get it from?" Right? And they didn't have a booth. So what they did was they set up a formal like a booth in a hotel room, and they invited people back there to see their collection. But sometimes you got to be creative. So I got that idea of I find investors from that idea back in the early '90s, and stuff like that works. Stuff like that works. Stuff like that will catch people's attention, or whatever your message is, that catch people's attention. And all you need somebody to do is ask them, "Well, that's interesting. Tell me more about it," because they're interested in your project now.
Yeah, that's good. I want to make a slight shift in the way I'm talking about partnerships and take it just a slightly different angle. Because here's something else. So I know we talked about this on Tuesday in our meeting when we was just talking about what happened to certain people in the industry that were doing really well. They disappeared. Here's what I think happens. Instead of looking and seeking to create partnerships to grow, everybody wants to do their own thing. I don't know how many people I have talked to about joining and saying, you do this, we do this, let's make this something that can go bigger together.
Mhm.
Never really goes anywhere. Nope, we got it. It's like, oh, I'm working on X, Y, and Z. And it's like, I'm working on the same thing. And when I ask them how far along are they at the beginning. And I'm like, you could always come join where we are and let's go further faster. But it's something about people's hesitancy to join together to create a bigger picture. And
Mhm.
I'm reading this book,
Yeah.
co-founder.ai. I can't remember the owner's name. He's from Baltimore, I believe, but he's basically saying you can use AI as a co-founder if you don't have a partner, things like that, and to embed technology to help you. But he brought back the analogy of I'd rather have a piece of a watermelon than 100% of a grape. And I think
Of
people are
course. Yeah.
missing that in partnerships. They want the 100% of the grape. They want it to be their own. They want to
Mhm.
control it. They want to have all of it. They want to leave their
Yeah.
mark. But then they don't realize that that thing that you want to say you want to scale can't happen that way.
Mhm.
And like we were talking about Tuesday, there are other great marketers out there that I've worked with that I have approached and say, you know what, let's do something together. Nope, doing my own thing, and we're all building the same types of things,
Yeah.
working in the same circles of people, AI, uh, autonomous agents, call center, like all these things that they're building. I built a lot of that. They could just pour gas on the. We could
Yeah,
join, but
yeah,
nope. They're doing their own, and then they disappear, and you're like, well, where is that person at? They were on fire,
hmm,
but now it's been about a year and a half. You don't hear from them. So,
yeah,
what do you think, Sean, in that definition of partnership is going on with people?
yeah. I just think that people want to do. They want all the glory. They want to be able to say, have people say, "Oh man, yeah, man, you did all this by yourself." But that's not. In order to be successful, in America, you know, you have to first of all got to find investors, right? And I'm talking about really wealthy, right? I understand you can be successful and do real estate and stuff like that, right? But I'm talking about in the business world, right? As far as finding investors and stuff like that, right? You have to find investors. The richest men in the world, they have companies, and from the president, vice president, CFO, they can each start their own company, but something about them and their character brought them all together and said, okay, well, hey, let's form this right here, and all three of us we can make a great product, right? So you got some people that they don't have that mindset. Like for example, Kyle, just you, Kyle, and myself, we can each start our own company, no problem whatsoever, right? And we probably could be fairly successful. But we understand as a team, all three of us, we can go so much further because we all add different parts of the business that will help the business grow. But some people don't understand that. They think they have all the answers. They think, you know, just what I'm doing, I can excel a lot further. It just doesn't happen like that, or it's really rare. I'll put it that way. It's rare. Usually, um, and also another thing I like about, like for example, our partnerships, is we all have different opinions, and we all come up with different ideas, and that's just very hard to do. A lot of times people with it's just you're kind of tunnel vision. You're only believing like your philosophy, you
Yeah.
know. So yeah, I just think that it's a little bit more difficult doing it by yourself. Now, I'm not saying it can't happen, but it's a little bit more difficult, you know?
Yeah, I don't know many companies north of 50 million that has one founder.
Yeah.
Now they say today you may be able to do $100 million company, $1 billion company with just you and AI. So they're using starting to say, AI can replace these other people. That yet to be seen. Probably will happen the way things are changing. But here are the things that as we wind down, I want you guys to take away from this conversation. Number one, there's no right or wrong way. That
Yeah.
is just how you think that you need to do for what you do in your business for you to grow. Whatever you think that is, go for it. For me, the points that I want to drive home is networking has changed. Yes, there was a time where you were able to get belly to belly, hand to hand, build really close relationships with people, and that worked.
Yeah.
That was your referral network. Today, if you continue to do that, people
Hmm.
will likely leave you behind
Yeah.
because there's only so much growth in that. I
Hmm.
think that could be among the 100 other reasons why only 3 to
Yeah.
4% of businesses actually go north of
Yeah.
$1 million in revenue.
Let me ask
It's
you
just
something.
too
I mean, let me
small.
let me
Yep.
let me input something real quick, Tyrus. I have friends, really close networking friends that I've never met face to face. I met them online, you know? So
Mm-hmm.
it can happen. And it probably happens a lot more than the old fashioned networking type thing, you know? Um, I mean, I was talking to a person the other day, in Oregon. Never met them, but we're really good friends and they've recommended people to me. So, I mean, I agree 100% what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's good. As you network, network with intention and just be very clear about, hey, I'm looking to build partnerships, I'm looking to build referral networks, I want to add value to you, and then I want to see what kind of value you can add to us because we need you or people like you in our ecosystem.
Yeah.
I personally can't say, I don't say no to that conversation. When people reach out to me and they say, "Hey, you want to meet?" What I do on LinkedIn, prime examples, I get messages all day, every day. I just say, "Hey, I'm not in the position right now, or we don't need to buy what you're selling, but I'm open to having a conversation if it's just a network and get to know you chat to see if future I may need it or any of my clients need it." To say no completely, that depending on where you are could stunt your growth. Now you may have grown where you want to grow and you're good where you are, perfect. But if you're talking about scale and continued growth, there is a point to where you need more resources than you can handle. Like I would rather have more
Yeah.
people that I can call on than five and then those five
Mhm.
get busy. That's just a thing. So as you are building your business, creating networking relationships, think about how do you do it. To Sean's point, in the social media world, if people don't know you, you definitely have to have some kind of content that they can go learn about you.
Mhm.
One pagers, decks, posts, webinars, podcasts, just things they can consume about you. Number two, really intentional on what that relationship is, how it works, how often you're going to communicate. And then for partnerships, I just encourage everybody to open your mind to say, is there a partnership here for me? Is this something that's going to help me in the long term, in the long run, take me further where I can go along? And lastly, when you're raising capital, it's essential that you have that network of pre-seed, family and friends capital, because even if you go, like we were talking about last night, broker dealers, they want you to be at a certain level. If you go to these private banks or these investment banks, they want you to be at a certain level before they'll start helping you raise capital. How do you think you're going to get to that level?
Mhm.
It's through the networking and the partnerships. Any final thoughts you want to leave with us, Sean?
Yeah, yeah, you made some great points, Tyrus. I mean, you're by far the networking and marketing guru. And and again, you brought that to the table to what we have. Because we don't know. I'm not a as you know great as you are as far as that marketing type stuff. So I mean, but yeah, you got to get out there. You got to create content. You got to network. You got to get your name out there because and now especially nowadays because that's the only way a lot of people will ever know you. I mean, you look at and I kind of as you were saying that I was thinking about my daughter, right? My daughter has friends all over the United States that she's never met, and they play this little game and stuff, on like a little server or whatever. But she and they're really good friends, but she's never met them. Well, how does she, you know, come, meet these people through people that she didn't know that invited these people on. So it's a form of marketing, a form of networking. You know, marketing as far as they market the game and they got their core base, but then they network was networking and got people other than the core people involved with it. So now uh, it's a large group that played this video game. But that's the basic level. She don't know anything about marketing, but she automatically did it because of the sign of the times. The times have changed and stuff like that. So, but yeah, man, that's a powerful thing, that marketing and networking, and that can make or break a business as well. So everybody got to get with somebody like a Tyrus or whatever and create a marketing plan and create a networking plan and things of that nature. So, but yeah, I agree 100% what you're saying, Tyrus.
Very good. And I'll close with that because I've never heard it put in the way that you just put it. And some people do it. Some people do it just naturally. They're
Yeah.
professional networkers.
Hmm.
Create a networking plan.
Yeah.
How many podcasts are you going to try to get on? How many events are you going to try to go to? How many chamber meetings are you going to attend? How many how long are you going to spend on Eventbrite looking for pop-up business meetups?
Yeah.
How what is your networking plan? What is your partnership plan? What is your appetite for a partnership? Think about those things because as you grow your business and build your business, you need to have people around you that can help you. They can be
Hmm.
your board of directors. And I'm not talking about they sit on the actual board, but they can be wise counsel. So you're not in this alone. So
Yeah.
as we wind down and get out of here, we appreciate you guys for listening in to us. Think about it. Definitely drop whatever comments you want to make in the chat. Just be professional about it. We don't need negativity. If you
Yeah.
disagree, disagree with some respect. So drop your comments. Tell us your stories, your ideas, what you do, how you do it. Let's have a conversation. We'll talk soon. See you all next week.